Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something pretty interesting, a real challenge actually. We're looking at how you achieve, massive technological growth, like getting that furnace up to level 22, but doing it while keeping a low profile, almost like flying under the radar competitively. It's not just about building fast, it's about being smart, strategic, maybe even a bit sneaky.
Exactly. It's like building the ultimate efficiency blueprint. We've got
Yeah.
this optimal strategy guide that's all about pure construction speed.
But
And then there's this survival strategy that focuses on, well, throttling your power level way down
hmm
aggressively. And our mission today is kind of synthesizing those,
yeah.
taking these two ideas that seem almost opposite and merging them into one high efficiency roadmap for you.
Right. And the sheer scale here is kind of mind-boggling. It comes down to one number, doesn't it? That furnace upgrade needs a huge pile of resources, 72 million total. That's 36 million wood, 36 million meat. Getting that together, that demands serious planning. Every buff, every research minute, how you rotate resources,
Mm.
it all has to line up perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. Precision is everything here. You mess up the timing on gathering, maybe waste a few hours on a buff activation. You could be losing days of competitive edge down the line. This whole plan, it runs on hard deadlines you just can't miss.
Okay, let's tackle speed first. If hitting this massive upgrade is the goal, what are the absolute must-dos? The hard requirements for construction velocity. The guide talks a lot about buff layering.
Buff layering is definitely mandatory. It's foundational. So you start with the permanent boosts. You get a secure VIP level 4 that gives you a base 10% speed boost right there. And then activate the Hyena Builder's Aid. That's another 12%. Those are your baseline, always on buffs.
Okay, baseline set. But it feels like the real make or break moment is the timing for that chief order double time. That gives you another 20% speed boost. Why is getting that timing right so absolutely critical?
Ah, because it's temporary. That's the key. And honestly, it's the single most common mistake people make. They trigger it way too early. This furnace upgrade, it takes days, right?
Yep.
So double time needs to be activated immediately before you hit that upgrade button. If you start it hours before, you just waste that powerful temporary boost on the less demanding part of the build. It's a huge time cost on a multi-day project.
Gotcha. So the timing on that temporary boost is almost more critical than stacking the permanent ones. Okay. Now, logistics. That 72 million resource number is still daunting. How do you scale up gathering that much without just, burning through all your speed ups?
Yeah, you can't just brute force it with speed ups. You need efficient gathering. The trick is turning specific blue rarity heroes into, well, logistical powerhouses. You need immediate investment in leveling up Eugene, he's your wood guy, and Chloris for meat. And you focus specifically on their skills for gathering speed and load capacity. They become the engine driving your resource income.
Makes sense. And what about internal production? Stuff from the chief's house? I saw something about a really strict three-step daily rotation that supposedly gives a massive multiplier effect. How does that work?
Yeah, the sequencing there is crucial. It's about compounding the yield you get.
Uh-huh.
So every day you have to sequence these three Chief's House orders in this order. Urgent mobilization first, then productivity day, and finally rush job. And the community data on this is pretty clear. Doing them in that specific sequence actually doubles the resource output you get from that final rush job order.
It's a significant, very efficient boost towards hitting that 72 million target.
Wow, doubling it just by the order.
Yeah.
Okay, so resources are flowing, gathering is optimized, but research, that's often the bottleneck, isn't it? What's the hard time gate here, the one thing that dictates the whole operational timeline?
It really comes down to the permanent speed research. The best one you can get is tooling up level 3. Gives a 2.00% boost. But, and this is the key, it's strictly gated behind Research Center level 21. You simply cannot start that final crucial research until your Research Center hits 21. And how long does that final piece, tooling up level 3, actually take to research?
That specific research, level 3, it takes 2 days, 7 hours, 33 minutes, and 20 seconds. Non-negotiable time.
Yeah.
So that time frame becomes your operational deadline for everything else, your 72 million resources. They absolutely must be gathered and ready to go the very moment that research finishes.
Oof. That requires some serious discipline. And speaking of efficiency, the sources flagged something interesting, almost a trap in that research path.
Yeah, they did. Tooling up level 2 is basically a trap, purely inefficient. It gives you the exact same 1.60% construction speed boost as level 1, but level 2 costs about 38% more resources and takes 50% longer to research than level 1. So the strategy is clear. Either commit fully and push all the way to the high-cost, high-reward level 3, or just stop at the much more efficient level 1. You absolutely skip level 2. Don't even touch it.
Okay, so we've got the speed part, the velocity blueprint locked down. It's intense but logical. Now we pivot to the really counterintuitive bit. Why does all this high-tech speed need us to, well, play small? This whole low power, high level idea, why?
Right, and this is where things get really interesting strategy-wise. We shift gears here. It's moving from optimizing your own build times, that micro-efficiency, to thinking about the bigger picture, the macro-competitive strategy. What we're doing is deliberately manipulating the metrics that everyone else sees, your visible power score. It's all about not letting the competition accurately gauge your real potential.
And the main place this manipulation pays off is in state versus state, the SVS events, that matchmaking system. How does keeping your individual power score low actually help the entire state?
It's all about how SVS matchmaking works. It relies heavily, almost entirely sometimes, on the combined troop power of the top 100 chiefs in your state. So if you have a good number of players like the one we're describing, high furnace, support role, who intentionally keep their individual troop power score low, they effectively dilute the state's overall average top 100 power.
Ah, okay. So the state looks weaker on paper than it actually is, technologically speaking. It's like gaming the system at a state level, state arbitrage, like you said.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. And the result, the entire state gets matched against an opponent that is objectively weaker than they should be facing based on the state's actual tech levels. This means easier wins, better collective rewards for everyone in the state. It optimizes the outcome for the whole group.
Okay, that makes sense for SVS. But what about day-to-day? Aren't these low-power, high-furnace players just painting a target on their backs? Doesn't that low visible score scream easy target to opportunistic attackers during regular PvP?
It definitely can attract attention, yes, but that's where the strategic camouflage comes into play. See, the average opportunistic raider, they're lazy. They scan for high power difference, low apparent defense. They rely heavily, maybe solely, on that visible power score. They see a low number, they assume low value, easy win. But a well-executed low power strategy means the defense punches way above its weight, because you've been quietly maximizing all the defensive stuff that doesn't massively inflate your visible power score. Things like high-level walls, sure, but critically, maxed out garrison capacity and, most importantly, absolutely maximized infirmary capacity. You get that through the growth research tree.
So they hit what they think is a soft target, but crash into a high-tech wall with huge hospital beds behind it.
Exactly. It immediately flips the cost versus reward calculation for the attacker. Suddenly, it's not worth the troop losses. And there's another angle too, resource efficiency, especially for players who aren't spending a lot of real money. By throttling power, you're delaying the really expensive high inflation activities like mass-producing high-tier troops. You conserve resources and speed-ups.
Right, they're basically building up this huge war chest, this stockpile, just waiting.
For the perfect moment. They hoard those conserved resources, those speed-ups, and then they deploy them strategically only during the most crucial event windows, like, say, the construction stage or the power boost stage in SVS. This maximizes their points, gets them the best rewards, and completely avoids that constant drain of resources you get when you're always trying to climb and maintain a high power rank day to day. It creates this sort of cyclical, controlled economy for them.
Okay, the strategy makes a lot of sense. It's clever. So how do you actually do it? How do you execute this low-power growth plan day to day? What needs that ruthless prioritization you mentioned?
The focus has to be absolutely laser sharp. Let's start with buildings. Building priority is simple. Furnace first, always. Then only its direct prerequisites, typically the infirmary and the embassy. All other non-essential buildings. You only upgrade them to the absolute minimum level required to unlock that next furnace upgrade. No fat. No wasted resources on buildings that inflate power but don't directly lead to the next tech tier.
And I assume the research path needs that same kind of isolated focus, avoiding anything that pumps up the power score too early.
Exactly right. Your research investment needs to be locked, completely locked, onto the growth research tree. Think building speed, research speed, and crucially, maxing out infirmary capacity. That's your trifecta, the battle research tree. During this low power phase, it's essentially poison, avoid it. If and only if a specific battle tech is an unavoidable prerequisite for critical growth tech you need, you research it to the absolute minimum required level and not one step further. Then you get right back to growth.
Okay, that brings us to managing troops. This feels like the trickiest part, the most sensitive throttle. You mentioned power accelerates like crazy at higher tiers. So what's the ceiling? Where do you have to draw the line on troop tiers, T tiers?
Yeah, this is critical. The strategic ceiling absolutely must be set at T8 troops, or maybe T9 at the very upper limit. The reason is just simple math. It's quantifiable. Power per unit jumps dramatically. At T10, you're looking at 66 power per T10 troop. And T11 is even worse, 80 power per unit. So mass-producing T10s or T11s during this phase, strictly forbidden. It blows the whole low-power strategy apart. Troops should only be trained to meet purely functional needs, like enough to fill rally slots when your alliance leaders run big attacks, or just enough to maximize the load capacity when you send them out gathering resources, no more than necessary.
That sounds like serious restraint, living with T8s or T9s when others are fielding higher tiers. Does that same level of restraint apply to heroes and the gear your chief wears?
Oh, absolutely. It has to be consistent across the board. For heroes, you prioritize the ones that are easy to promote, usually the lower rarity ones that offer good passive utility. Think gathering speed buffs, construction speed, research speed buffs. Forget chasing those expensive, hard-to-level premium mythical heroes for now. They cost too much in resources and sometimes add hidden power. And chief gear, keep it basic. Acquire maybe some blue, perhaps purple gear sets just to get the basic set bonuses. And then, this is important, only do minimal upgrades. Aggressively avoid using rare enhancement materials like hardened alloy or those charms. Enhancing gear adds up power fast, and it consumes resources you absolutely need saved up for that final power spike later on. Keep it simple, keep it cheap, keep it low power.
Okay, let's talk risk. Because there's definitely a vulnerability here, right? A raider scouts you, sees a high-level furnace but a suspiciously low power score. They might just smell blood in the water, assume you're an easy, juicy target.
Yeah.
How do you protect that massive resource stockpile you're building when your military score is deliberately, suppressed?
Yeah, that's the number one risk, no question.
Yeah.
And since you can't rely on overwhelming military force for defense during this phase, your resource protection has to be absolute, non-negotiable. Rule number one is warehouse security. Your warehouses must always be upgraded to the maximum possible level for your furnace. That shields a baseline amount of your stockpiled resources. Beyond that, the only truly safe policy is zero risk. That means maintaining an active peace barrier, a shield, whenever you're vulnerable, especially when you're going offline for any length of time. No unprotected resources, ever.
So defense is basically economic security and hiding behind a shield. And we've touched on it a few times, but let's nail it down. Why is maximizing the infirmary capacity so central? Why is that the primary defensive mechanism here?
Because it's about preserving your future military capability. Look, if you do get hit, someone gets through your shield or catches you off guard, you want to minimize the permanent damage. Wounded troops in your infirmary, they can be healed relatively cheaply, relatively quickly. Troops that die because your infirmary is full, they're gone forever. Lost investment. So by maxing out that infirmary capacity using both growth, research, and the building upgrades, you ensure that even if you take a hit, the troops needed for your eventual power spike aren't permanently lost. It protects your future investment.
Makes sense. But the throttled chief can't just be a hermit, right? They still need to be useful to their alliance. They can't just be a high-tech resource sponge hiding under a shield.
No, absolutely not. They need to remain functional, a valuable team member. This means having enough of those T8 or T9 troops trained to effectively fill rally slots when the Alliance's high power players launch major attacks or defend objectives. You got to contribute bodies to the fight. And they also need to train a decent number of infantry units specifically. Even lower tier infantry can serve as a useful high hit point damage sponge for garrison defense if the Alliance needs help defending structures. So you're not a frontline fighter yet, but you're definitely a crucial technical asset and a reliable support player.
Okay, so this low power phase isn't permanent, it's tactical. The guide suggested typically runs from around furnace level 16 up to maybe furnace 30. When does the switch flip? When does that controlled power spike finally happen? And how do you actually deploy that massive backlog of saved up resources and speed ups?
Right. The low power phase is definitely strategic and temporary. Once that technological foundation is truly maxed out furnace high, key growth research done the transition should be almost instantaneous. And devastating if done right. The final deployment, that power spike, needs to be a highly controlled sequence. Think of it in 3 steps. Sequence 1, immediate mass training and promotion of troops straight to the highest tier you have unlocked, probably T10 or T11 by then. Just flood your camps. Sequence 2, simultaneously dump saved up resources and speed ups into the high-yield battle research you neglected for so long. This multiplies the effectiveness of those brand new high-tier troops. And sequence 3, Finally, invest those saved rare materials into getting advanced chief gear, likely mythic, and enhancing it with charms. Maximize your stats.
Wow. So by delaying all that investment, all that power gain, you effectively bypass months of slow, grinding, inefficient competition. You just unleash maximum power only after the technological base is fully built.
Precisely. The result is just far superior long-term efficiency and combat viability. You essentially leapfrog months, maybe even a year, of incremental power gains that others made inefficiently along the way.
Yeah.
You deploy overwhelming power exactly when its return on investment is highest, built on a rock-solid technological foundation. #outro.
So pulling together everything from the guides we looked at today, the core conclusion seems pretty clear. Having a really high technological capacity like that high furnace level absolutely does not require having a matching high power score. That power score is really just a measure of how much military power you've chosen to realize and display at that moment.
Exactly. And for the efficient player, the smart learner out there, strategic discipline is key. Deliberately avoiding that unnecessary power inflation. That becomes your ultimate competitive advantage. It's arbitrage, like you said.
Right.
You gain an edge in matchmaking, you gain strategic camouflage, you optimize your resource use, all by deliberately showing less power than you actually possess the potential for.
Discipline, patience, meticulous planning. Turning what looks like a weakness, low power, into a really decisive strength. It really confirms that the things we often see, the visible metrics like power or status, they're often not the real measure of preparedness or potential, are they?
Which definitely makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other areas, maybe in our professional lives or even personal goals, where might we benefit from a similar approach? Disciplined, technologically advanced deep down, but strategically throttled on the surface. Something you can maybe mull over until our next deep dive.